hone in on what you know, learn from the best, because what PE is doing, it's not unethical. It's not. It's very professional. Their operations are top notch, and so you need to increase your R&D department,
rob and duplicate,
and implement it in your business, and choose 1 to 2 things at a time.
Welcome to Blue Collar Bros, a home service podcast focused on scaling family business and discovering what differentiates the best of the best within the industry. We are your bros, the Yarbrough brothers. On the right, we have Will. On the left, Kolby. Center, me, Tucker. Our producer, Bryce, is also here steering the ship with us today. So, guys, today we're talking AC shipment cliff, manufacturers partnering with big retail chains, the tool belt generation, aka Gen Z just opting not to college, technology speculation, what's going on with AI? Is Google just blatantly ripping people off? Hot takes only today, guys. So, guys, Bryce, steer it away.
Yeah, I love the intro, Tuck. So
that's good. Super boring topic.
Today's gonna be a lot of fun. So I went through a list of headlines. I aggregated some news just from Q1. So really, what I was looking at is like, hey, what has been going on in the HVAC/trades industry as a whole in the first quarter of the year? And I wanted to kind of ask you guys some questions, put you on the hot seat, and ask you, what's been going on. And I wanted to start with, how have we done this first quarter? How has Yarbrough & Sons performed this first quarter compared to last year in terms of repair and replacement and your customers' mindsets?
I mean, I know for me, and I don't know if this is the same for Kolby, but I've noticed, I feel like I've done more replacements than I have anything else. I feel like my replacements are up from last year. This is sort of what I'm trying to say.
Total quantity.
Yeah. So, but that might be anecdotal too, just because of, just I wasn't involved in residential replacements as much last year because I was doing a little bit more commercial. So I might be a bad metric for this, but for me personally, it feels like I've done more.
So I think as a good metric, you jumping into residential, I feel as busy as I did last year, and you're also more busy, which would make sense. And so we're about what
the numbers support that.
About
so 30%? residential replacement for us right now is up about 35%. Yes. We still have money sitting in Service Titan waiting to be pulled over to QuickBooks. And as I harass Will and Kolby, we don't count the money that's in Service Titan. We only count what's in QuickBooks because QuickBooks is reality. And so we have about, we're 35-ish% up on replacement. And by the end of the month, it'll probably be somewhere in the realm, of 40%. But
we're still getting kicked in the teeth, everybody.
Yeah, we're getting kicked in the teeth. So it's a nuanced answer as far as how did Q1 go. Q1, we didn't hit budget in any regard, but what we did do was we blew out our residential numbers in both service, replacement, and in plumbing. We were up huge in those three areas. But as we talk more about the business, we're 50% commercial. And so commercial right now is just absolutely tanked. There's no work to be had, and we have work on the horizon, but money is expensive right now. And so with money being expensive, our GCs and the commercial builders that we tend to work for aren't doing nearly as much. And so we took it on the chin. Whenever you rely on that commercial, it's low margin work, takes a lot of bodies, but it keeps us consistent most of the time. And right now we're feeling that in a big way where we're only down over last year about 3.5%. But doing that in residential is crazy because it only takes a third of the manpower.
Yeah.
And so you have a large portion of the company who's stuck without work right now. And we're painting fences, mowing yards, scrapping units, and just keeping guys busy.
Yeah.
But
a lot of our commercial guys are doing some residential jobs.
Yeah.
Like
we're sending multi-crews.
Yes.
So we're taking the numbers on the jobs we do have.
Yeah.
But industry-wide, though, we're seeing a trend towards a decreased year again. We pulled up the Google search trends earlier, where 2021 was that high, and it was the peak of the last 15, 20 years.
And what you're searching on Google Trends is AC repair.
Yes.
Since 2004.
Yeah. And so what we're looking at on that is the peaks and valleys. And shout out to Joe Strittmatter, our buddy down in Texas, for posting this last night on Facebook.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
I got caught up looking at it for a while, but it's a correlation between when people search AC repair and actual AC shipment. In 2021, we saw PE move into the space in a huge way, and that was where they really started making that big shift. People got stuck at home. You have money giving out by the government, not just to businesses, but to individuals. People are making investments, and private equity capitalized in a big way of pulling forward a lot of those replacements that otherwise would have been sprinkled throughout these last couple of years. So each year from 21, you have like a 20% decrease, a 23% decrease. And then, according to our buddy Joe, 24 is pacing for a 30% decrease. And, that's what Lennox and all the manufacturers that we've seen, they're pacing for 30 to 35% shipment fall off.
Gotcha. Okay. Hey, so
if we
real
can
quick,
just stay at 30.
Yeah. I want you to explain something though too. So like for people like me in the nosebleeds and need a little bit more of a simplified answer to this. Whenever you say PE pulled forward a lot of the replacements, expound on what you mean by they pulled it forward.
So what they did is manufacturer warranties end at 10 years if it's registered. Ends at 10 years. And so what they did is it basically just cost benefit analysis for the customer of saying, why should you take the risk on this thing when the manufacturer is not willing to? And so came in with some aggressive offers and really started having technicians push for replacement at an earlier and earlier stage. So most of the PE firms that we interacted with, they're pushing for like an 11, 12-year replacement flip. And so whereas history says, it's 15 to 20 is where it typically falls. We believe a system, just depending on how it's installed, its lifespan is somewhere between 12 and 18 years ish. Again, that's how it's installed. If it was just if Darren Yarbrough installed your system, it might last 25 years. Who knows?
I've seen some of them. So, and we've talked about this on our Tuesday morning meetings with our service technicians. Like, our guys are very technically skilled to fix just about anything that ever breaks down. And so, but there comes a point where it no longer makes sense to keep for the homeowner. And so, PE is very, very good at communicating when it makes sense, when it makes the most sense to replace it, which is typically now as opposed to later.
And again, it's not. It's the morality of this is moot. It's not good or bad. It's just what happened.
Yeah. Right.
Is what systems that would have been 14, 15, or 16 years old this year got replaced 2 and 3 years ago when they were 12 and 13 and 14 years.
And
so they pulled forward a big section of installs that companies would have been relying on today for that replacement work.
And that's what you meant by sprinkling it out throughout. So it's more they were more intentional about bringing up those replacements in a concerted way.
And they have their systems are very like top-notch systems as far as to when to offer a system replacement, whereas a lot of the smaller companies, similar to us, where we're trying to build our processes and our systems, we're not nearly as efficient at communicating to the homeowner that timeline. And so for us, like, I think we have maintenance plans. Our average replacement, the average age of a system whenever we replace it, what was it, 16 years? 17 years?
Whoa. So right now our average replacement is 18 years. Is where
18
we're
years.
at.
Yeah. So 18 years. And that's a combination.
That's the average.
That's the average. That's a combination of things. One, so if our guys are not having the conversation with the homeowner, year 10, they've got major soon enoughs. They're, if they have it sooner, then the homeowner might replace it at, let's say they have the conversation year 10, and then like the homeowner has an opportunity to save up year 12. And like, hey, let's go ahead and get this thing replaced. But we're waiting. Oftentimes, we're waiting until it's an absolutely catastrophe, and they have no other choice but to replace. And now they're surprised. And so we're trying to work on our systems to make sure that our homeowners are communicated with, where they have an opportunity to save up for a big expense. Because most of the time they're like, we're going to kick this can as far down the road, but sometimes you kick the can and you're standing at a cliff and you're like,
Well, something too though that I think PE and even like corporate backed HVAC companies are doing a good job of over the last 5 years is changing the conversation about what it means to replace your HVAC system. And so there's a Forbes article, and if I find it, I'll have Bryce link it in the description. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there's a Forbes article I was reading a couple months ago, and it was talking about how like I wanted to look at it versus auto sales and how auto sales worked and when people decided to replace their cars and what did that look like. And so I think private equity and corporate backed HVAC companies are doing a better job of having a conversation that looks more like a car rather than like a home appliance. And the car, Forbes found that it was 65% of people replace it 20 to 30,000 miles before they feel like they need to, because they want to avoid that major inconvenience. Because if your car breaks down, man, you're stranded. It's your SOL. And whereas HVAC system, a lot of times people think of it more like a home appliance. Where it's like, I'll run this blender until it breaks, and then once this blender breaks, I'll buy a new one.
But no one ever knows how much the thing costs, and so they don't know how much to save for.
Well, and two, without your HVAC, your home becomes unlivable. So you might as well be stranded at the Target parking lot.
especially like July.
Yeah. And so that's the conversation that's flipped, I think, in a lot of these PE companies, is they're doing a lot better job of conveying it more like a vehicle rather than a home appliance. And so that allows them to pull forward those sales.
So does that start with your operations, with your technicians, preparing your technicians to start those conversations with your homeowners?
Yes. Yeah. We're working with our technicians on Tuesdays, sometimes Wednesdays, on being willing to have that conversation with the homeowner. Like just mentioning to the homeowners, hey, your system's out of warranty. You might consider start saving up for system replacement, or consider, if you've got the funds, replace it now versus later. Because what happens is whenever, Will and I go out, and it's, it's 18 years old, and typically
we've never had that conversation.
It's a disservice to the homeowner, because now they've lived in this house. We've been doing maintenance on their system, and each year we're like, oh yeah, it's fine. We'll just, you're doing good. We'll kick the can a little bit further down the road. But then there comes a point where you've kicked it as far as you can, and now it's a catastrophe, and now you can't. The
repair
cost of repair is so high that it no longer makes sense, and now the homeowner's kind of backed into a corner. And so we're working with our technicians, because, like I said, our technicians are highly skilled. They can fix and repair just about anything, even if it's a catastrophe. Like they can do the repair. Like they can replace the major component. But for a homeowner, it doesn't make sense. So we're working on having that conversation as early as we can, and we're after that 10 to 12 year mark. We're like, hey, I think your system's out of warranty.
Not to cut you off on the tangent here, but you're good. Highlight. Colby's passionate about it.
I'm fired up.
Colby's got words.
Also, Kolby runs the Tuesday meetings, so he takes it personal. But this highlights why I think we're up in residential versus what the industry is doing right now. Companies who are intentionally focusing on having the conversation with their technicians are going to be further ahead than those that aren't. And companies that take their brand seriously and do a lot of brand work, and that's kind of, we'll get into that later, but that's kind of more ethereal and uncomfortable. But companies that are doing that are finding greater and greater success, because regardless of how we feel about processes and regardless of how we feel about operations, the shipment cliff is there.
Yeah.
There's a graph that Bryce had pulled up on the Home Pros website here.
So this is on homepros.news, and we pulled up an article. It says AC and heat pump shipments off to slower start than last year, and it just pulls up a graph here, and it shows that since 2019, it looks like we had an uptrend from 2019 to 2022. And this is just a metric. It shows 1.4 million units being moved. That was the peak in 2022, and we declined to 1.2 million in 2023, and then this year, I guess this quarter so far is 1.13.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 1.1 million.
Yeah, that's January through February.
So
that's January through February. I was like, that seems kind of
low. No. So but even still though, that gives a good trend. You take a 2-month time frame, and it again, we flipped that peak from 21 to 22, but even still, money got more expensive through 22. So who knows? But the shipment cliff is real. So regardless of our marketing or operations, things like that, the demand overall is less. So it requires us to double down on marketing systems and operations to make sure we're getting to see more customers. Because that's with Will hopping in to residential sales, it hasn't slowed Joe or Kolby down hardly at all. And,
not too much.
Last year, I think towards Q3, Q4, we felt a little bit of that dip. in total lead per person. But I think what it did do was it laid the groundwork to open up the
Right.
sales book for us to have more room.
Right.
Just as adding a salesperson does.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've really started kind of honing in our conversations on Tuesday with our technician. I feel like our technicians are doing a better job this year than they were in the past year, because like we're having that conversation with them for them to have that conversation with the homeowners.
Yeah.
And so
Like earlier on.
Yeah, earlier on.
Yeah.
And so and what that means, and so for example. This month we set a budget for lead flip. Basically, is turnover leads for systems that are of age that need to be replaced. The leads that we budgeted for was 64. We hit that this past week.
Yeah, on Tuesday.
And we've got a couple more days left. And so they're doing an awesome job. And we hit the budget number as far as lead turnovers go. And so, which is really exciting. And so I believe that's one of the reasons why we're up 30% too, was in it. A lot of that has to do with branding, but also our guys are doing a lot better job of having that conversation and getting our foot in the door.
Yeah.
for
Because it's going to be everything.
This leads into the next thing, which is with the shipment cliff. These manufacturers are going to do everything they can to mitigate losses, to mitigate decreases, because you guys know my stance on Keynesian economics, but we're damn the stakeholder and let's take care of the shareholder. So we got to make sure that we are continually increasing profits. And so with that, you have these manufacturers now partnering with retail chains. Linux just partnered up with Contractor Commerce, which is basically just a online. It's kind of like a Shopify for the HVAC space. You can do drop shipping of filters, building systems for pricing, things like that. And then the other side that's a little bit more close to home, because Linux already has a strategic partnership like this. Bryant partnered with Walmart. And so Linux has been in Home Depot or Lowe's for forever. And they're also in Costco. But they're going to do everything they can to get product in front of consumers no matter where they're at.
Yeah, and I think, again, this comes from homepros.news, but they had an interesting take. It said, e-commerce is kind of changing the landscape, or the consumers people have a willingness to have big ticket items purchased online through websites rather than dealing with a local contractor. So where does this put a company like Yarbrough and Sons at? How does that paint the picture for a company like ours? Whenever, consumers can go onto these websites and directly request, that unit. It says, quote, instead of going to Linux.com and requesting that someone contacts you, they go all the way through the buying process directly on the dealer's website. That's what's so key here. The action is initiated on Linux.com, but it's happening on the dealer's website. So
I also have a meeting with Redmond on Thursday this week. So
do you? Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how it plays, like how it works, because there's so many things where it's like, is Linux making how much the system's going to cost?
Nope.
Or are we?
we are.
We are.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm a fan.
So contractor,
because it happens already. If you've got people have gone on Linux, Linux's website, they'll look up if they want to have a Linux system installed, they can search for a dealer, and then a lead gets sent to us.
I thought you were going with the MSRP. They on all their systems they have MSRPs, and if we could sell systems for what the MSRP is, we'd be doing great.
Yes.
We'd be doing okay.
Right. Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I've been interested on how that was going to play out, because, well, if your branding is in a place where people want to call you directly, then it's kind of a non-issue. But you do have those customers that are searching for the equipment manufacturer specifically. And so
I said hot takes only today. We have Tesla to thank for this. 100% we do.
What do you mean by that?
So
Expound on that.
yeah, so we have Tesla to thank for this. As far as the comfortability to make large ticket purchases online, because for the last 6 years, there's not a Tesla dealership. I think the first Tesla dealership was made like 3 years ago. Before that, you had to buy factory direct, and the only way to buy factory direct was online with a bank account tied to their website.
Yeah.
That you then ACH'd for the car.
Yeah.
And you bought the car before you even got to drive it anywhere. And so it's changing. Like I think Tesla, because it's the cool thing, like they're changing consumer behavior in a big way. And I think it's trickling into every space that has large ticket items.
I think we might see something. I don't know. This is my hot take. I think you might see more high efficiency sales through this model than you would otherwise, because the type of person that's going to be looking for air conditioning systems and doing research, they're going to land
through it
and walking through it. They're going to land here, you know. And so then, by the time it reaches a contractor like us, they will already have been prepped for some of those types of systems. Towards, you know, I don't think you're going to get a person looking for this stuff and just. I mean, obviously, you're going to have
wanting the lowest price.
Yeah, wanting the absolute lowest price. Yeah, you know, and so I mean, there are probably going to be some of those people, but I think as a percentage,
There'll be more anomalous.
You'll be seeing more high efficiency systems purchased.
And two, you have so with contractor commerce, and one of the things, and one of the reasons that we're looking at, you know, even partnering with them, is we as the contractor get to make a choice on the tool that they have, which is we can gate the system behind them giving us some sort of information, the customer giving us an email, a phone number, whatever, or we can flip the switch and make it completely open and anybody can come in and price a system on our website. I am very much more of the mindset of allow anyone to come in and price.
I like the openness.
As opposed to gating it, because you're decreasing.
For so long, you know, HVAC systems have been behind a paywall. Or behind a wall,
interaction wall.
An interaction wall, yeah.
And so, like, you know, and I think younger generations are trying to figure out how much the thing costs,
and that's trickling upward too.
Oh yeah,
is like as like our parents, you know, as they continue to get more and more tech savvy, you know, they are doing the same thing. So that behavior is trickling upward, and we're seeing that in a big way. So I'm with you guys on. So whenever we meet with Redmond, you know, we'll talk about the fact that we want this open. Yeah. We don't want it behind a paywall.
Yeah.
And so you have the one thing that I think has the potential to shake up the industry more is tools like contractor commerce, unless Bryant partnering with Walmart. Those types of strategic partnerships have existed for the last 15, 20 years, where a manufacturer is directly in the store. And I don't know that it's enough to really move the needle in any direction for us as a contractor. But contractor commerce and tools like it, because Innovative Air Pros up in Tulsa, they use a different tool, but it's almost the same. Shout out Cody. But they use a really similar tool where it's a pricing guide and things like that. And that's kind of in line with some of the articles that we've been releasing, which is a pricing guide. Like,
yeah, I was gonna ask you about that, because we've been positioning ourselves as being, you know, I think we see the landscape changing before us, and so Tucker and I have had a lot of conversations about transparency. It's like, what does it look like to just bring as much information to the customer before they even have to call us, before they even have to make a decision? How do we mitigate or expedite that process as much as possible? And one way that Tucker did that is he wrote these articles on, hey, how much does a water heater cost? How much is a new HVAC system? And there was a little bit of hesitancy with that.
Yeah.
What were you feeling about that?
Well, it's yeah, you're kind of getting undressed at the doctor's office a little bit. You know, it feels like, oh man, all right, well, we're showing everything here, because ultimately the price is the transit by which we get to make a sale, and so the price has to be right, but it has to make sense for both sides. We have to make money. Customer needs to feel good about it, and ultimately, and thankfully, because Will, Kolby, and Joe, you know, their pencils are sharp enough, and we're able to custom fit systems to homes in such a way that we can meet every homeowner's need at any price point. But it's more of the conversation of what is realistic, what is achievable, and what can we do to make this the most painless process possible? Because no one wants to buy an HVAC system. It's not a Tesla. It's an HVAC system.
Yeah.
You're going to think it's ugly. Even the coolest one out there, you're going to hate looking at it. And so one of the things that we did was our price ranges on our website, you know, it says average, but that is our range. Like, that's not just like, I just threw the dart and said,
It's a wide range also.
Yeah.
You did it by tonnage, And you gave a really wide, I think the widest gap was like $8,000 to like
25?
Yeah, something like that. So it can go from like 8,000 to 25,000. So while we're giving a ballpark price, it's still very open ended.
Yeah,
but
right.
it still paints a picture.
Well, there are so many options.
Yeah.
Like as far as features that the HVAC equipment has.
Yeah.
And so it's the range made sense to us. Like on the low end, like is accurate, and on the high end, it's accurate too. So it's like if you're going with a variable capacity system, you are going to be spending that much. Mm-hmm. And so, I think Kolby 4 years ago, but would have been really, really hesitant. But Kolby now is very excited about the kind of the they ask you answer style.
Marcus shared it.
Because it qualifies the customer before I even get there.
Yeah.
Like if I've provided the information and they've gone on our website, they see how much the system costs. Mm-hmm. Whenever I'm asking them questions on, how much money, how expensive do they think an HVAC system is?
Yeah.
It's aligned with how much it's going to cost.
Yeah.
So they're not telling me, I think the system's going to cost $4,000. I'm like, 20 years ago that would have been the case, but not now.
Yeah.
So-
And I do this in a smaller way on PPC, but we made a change in the last few years with our PPC where I have, if you're going to see one of our ads on Google, one of the top things you'll see highlighted is our service fee, $89 service fee. Mm-hmm. And I was hesitant about that because I'm like, oh no, that'll deter people. And the more you think about that, it's like, that's really regressive. It's like, I'm qualifying customers. If this deters you, I don't really want you calling. If you're not prepared to pay an $89 service fee, I don't really want you calling us. And so you're qualifying them in real time on that.
Right.
Meanwhile, I am actively leading the charge within our own camp to get rid of the service fee altogether.
Yeah. And I think that'd be fantastic. I think it'd be fantastic because, we learned something in February. It's the worst month of the year, right? And we shout out to Cody over at Innovative Air Pros again, but he ran a $29 tune-up special. And so we were like, you know what? We should do that too. And it was fun too because it was $29 29 days of February, $29 tune-up. So we're like, shoot, we're going to steal that. So I emailed with him, talked to him about it, and we launched our own version of that campaign. And what we learned from that was that we were very hesitant, but lowering that barrier of entry actually made our service technicians perform at a higher level. Mm-hmm. It gave us way more opportunities. And so when we're talking about getting rid of an $89 service fee in favor of a $0 service fee, no service fee, it makes it more realistic and tangible to say like, oh, you know what? We just need to lower that barrier of entry, have everyone call us. Let's get our hands on every system. Let's give our options to these customers and make something happen. And that was a huge I think that's the biggest thing that's happened this year.
Yeah.
And talking about Q1 in terms of marketing, I think that's the biggest thing that's happened for us and how we reframe
We
it.
got more new customers in February than we did
Any month so
any
far.
month so far.
So I want to reference something back to Tucker said, a couple of episodes ago. Was you were referencing Alex Hormozy, but you're like the only thing that separates me from me and Alex Hormozy is reps.
I still stand by that.
This gets you reps.
Yeah.
So it's like sure, okay, your closing percentage might tank a little bit just because you're the type of customer you're going to be interacting with might not be as willing to spend as much money because you don't have that barrier to entry. Yeah. But you're going to get more reps, you're going to get more practice, and I think the reps will outpace your what am I trying to say? Your inability to convert. Yeah.
Yep. Well, and it's a false safety net too. That's something else. Is it presents and that's something that we found with the $29 tune-up is, and it wasn't even us that said it. It was one of our technicians. I think it was Robert that said it. Is he said with this $29 tune-up, we know we have to convert. We know we have to do what we need to do. Because we're going out there for nothing. And Swaim, our service manager, he was like, why don't we have that attitude all the time? Like we should have that attitude all the time. Yeah. Because to be frank, like our family membership, which is our lowest tier membership, we lose money on that. It is a break even at best. If we do nothing other than show up and do the tune-up, it's break even at best.
And 85% of our memberships are on that tier, right?
Yeah.
So
1,200 of them, and so you break even on 1,200 customers a year, but it's just to get your foot in the door. And so it's changing that attitude. It gets rid of that safety net. And to kind of go a little bit, a little insert a tangent here to other contractors. If you feel like you can't ask your team to outbound, you're wrong. If you feel like you can't ask your team to do the thing, you're wrong. It's only ever going to get as good as you push them to get. That is the reality. The company is only ever going to be capable of rising to the level of your leadership lid and the asks you make of the team. Because that was the first big outbounding thing that we did. We spent $400 in marketing and generated over $70K, $75K in service revenue. And so we have this mindset that is like, oh, we can't do the thing, like, or it's uncomfortable. Your team will rise to the expectation. They will rise to it. And especially if you lay out the why. The why behind it matters.
We don't have anything to do.
Yeah, it's either that's a pretty compelling why. We have to kill something and drag it home so we can all eat.
Yes.
And so with that, we had the most new customers generated off of $400 on a Facebook campaign. That was the only place we put this $29 tune-up. Everything else was outbounding.
Well, and arguably, we attributed, oh man, I'm going to throw out some numbers, but I'm going to say 90% of the revenue generated from that campaign was attributed directly to outbounding. So I quit running the ad on Facebook. That's why I only spent $400. I probably allotted, 800 or 1,000, something like that to run over several weeks or not several weeks, but the weeks of that month. And we killed it because it's like, oh, this really isn't helping us. It's not really performing. The outbounding campaign was doing so well that we just killed it.
Right.
And that is solely the reason why February hit budget. February is the only month so far that we've hit budget, and it's because of that outbounding and that push that we made. Yeah. Now, obviously, you have to heat check the team, make sure we're not getting burnt out, make sure that we're not pushing too hard. But you can do the thing. You can ask more of your team. Now it has to be done well. The why has to be explained, and you can roll it out. But that's my encouragement to other contractors is do the thing.
Oh, and I just want to throw this in too real quick. We budgeted for around 70 new customers to be generated in February, and that's like the lowest of the year, if I'm not mistaken. And we had hit 138.
And as far as new customers, Bryce, what do we consider a new customer?
So a new customer is someone, well, the way we consider it is someone who we have never serviced before, or it's within that 12-year time span. But for us, I'm mixing up two different things because how are you asking this question?
So we reactivated a lot of customers from this. So it's a lot of times, and this is like Service Titan does this, and I think Sarah does this as well. If you have had a customer in your database and they haven't used you in over 2 years, and then they use you again, they will get classified as a new customer because that relationship broke. You didn't have a membership, you didn't have interaction. And so I think it was like 20 or 30 of those new customers were existing customers. But they were customers we hadn't seen in 3, 4, or 5 years. Right. And they just happened to see the deal or get called or, get a text.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I was forgetting about that.
But I set you up for failure.
I know.
It's
all good.
That's on me, pal.
The parameters for the outbounding campaign was like, hey, let's reach out to people who have used us within the last 4 years who have spent more than X amount of dollars. Because we want to, I'm not going to target people who had $0 tickets or just phone calls that led to nothing, right? So I'm already qualifying these leads. People have used us in the last 4 years, but haven't used us in the last 12 months. Yeah. So you're kind of working within like a 3-year window, and we got a huge success from that. So
and because of that metric that Service Titan gives, it's like it shows that most of those customers, like even though it was like the 0 to 4 years, most of them fell within that 3 to 4 year range that reactivated with us, and then we ended up having like a 70% membership conversion rate on those $29 tune-ups. So if we didn't get to do anything else while we were there, we sold memberships.
And I got a question. I want to get a hot take on this from all three.
Are we getting away from the $29 tune-up?
Yeah, go ahead. I want you to go ahead and tell me.
What was the average?
Hold on your question. I will. I'm hanging on to it.
What was the average ticket?
It's $365, $378, something like that. And our base membership costs $180. So a lot of times it was selling IAQ upgrades. It was selling, and that's not even the blended average. So that's just the service and repair and maintenance. So it was selling, blower cleanings, new motors, new capacitors. Because the whole reason, and this is something I think the industry struggles with in general, is whenever we're out there to do maintenance, technicians a lot of times you'll get. Bill Belichick said this on the Pat McAfee Draft Spectacular that was on Thursday night. He said, "Don't get bored with consistency." Don't get bored with consistency. And he said, that's why I moved off of players 2 and 3 years early, because they started trying to shortcut the system. They tried to shortcut the consistent chipping away at the thing. And that's why Bill moved off of players. And it's in every industry that translates is don't get bored with consistency. And those maintenances are the consistent thing. And to a technician who's capable of fixing complex problems and who enjoys fixing complex problems, a maintenance is easily seen as like a less than task.
Yeah.
Like I'm capable of doing so much more. And,
Yeah, and so you don't do the full thing.
Yep.
You breeze over some stuff.
Yeah.
But whenever you don't have the safety blanket of $180 tuna or $180 membership, $90 visits, and you're going out there for $29, we got to convert. So it's $368-ish. The blended average for that was like $1,300 once we had a couple sales put in there.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like the feeling of the distance between we're breaking even, or we're not making any money at all, and I'm costing money was much higher at the $29. And so that level of despair,
pressure.
level of despair, that pressure for our technicians, I think they really perform.
Pressure makes diamonds.
Yes, I will say one of the things that, because we've done a low cost.
Yeah, we sucked.
We sucked the first time we did this.
Okay, and I want to just because everyone gave me a hard time. They're like, "We've done this before. We've done this before." I was like, "Was I here?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "That's right."
You're right. Yeah. Hey, those Tuesday meetings, screw those, Kolby. It's because Bryce is here.
Because Bryce is here.
I'm sorry. I was being cocky.
So,
Bryce, what was your question?
Yeah.
Did you have anything else you wanted to
no,
say?
you're the most important thing here. So go.
Oh boy. You're right.
Snark,
I'm sorry.
the snark is real.
Jeez. Kolby, it's all you, buddy. It's all you. I'm just here to,
Rock, paper, scissors.
We're all just doing our best, guys. So I had a question about private equity in general, because the sentiment about private equity can be interesting when it comes to a privately held company who has not sold, such as ourselves, Yarbrough and Sons. I think in a lot of ways, the private equity has, it's iron sharpening iron. I think that a lot of them have the way that we're measuring ourselves against other companies who are held by private equity. It's tightened up our operations significantly. It's made us reconsider that lower barrier of entry, the $0 service fee. I just wanted to throw that out there and get some hot takes on that. But in this way, does private equity sort of sharpen us to get us to, I think competition begets greatness. And so whenever you have a higher level of competition in your market, you're going to rise to that occasion. And I feel like that's what's been happening.
Will, take it away.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, anytime you have a competition, I mean, it's just, I think, when there's no incentive to improve or get better, that breeds complacency. And so, if there's nothing around you that's kind of in competition with you, then yeah, 100%. I think it's easy. Then you're gonna do just the bare minimum to get by. And you might have anomalous people. I feel like we're a little bit of an anomaly. We enjoy improving ourselves and doing all that stuff. But I don't. We're not like that 100% of the time. You know what I mean? So
We like our Oreos.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I enjoy Oreos. Yeah. So I think you need that. And so yes, I think PE does provide it is, even for companies like us that haven't sold to PE, it provides a way to sharpen our own skills, because we've got, all right, we've got to be at the top of our game, because this big company that's got a, the term Tucker uses, which I really do enjoy, is the war chest. They've got a war chest of a lot more cash than we've got. So what are we going to do in order to compensate?
How do we outmaneuver?
Yeah. How do we outmaneuver? And that game to me is a lot of fun.
How do we maintain the pirate flag?
Yeah. And so I think that's the pirate flag. I like that one too.
So you have, I think what PE has, and this isn't the first time private equity or consolidation has swept the nation. It happened in the late 90s, early 2000s with Service Experts and the Wrench Group rolling across. However, this time I think that a lot of the PE firms have more staying power than what they did back then, because they've learned over the last 25 years of how not to do the thing. So regardless, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like they've, or at least how I am seeing it, it seems like they are much better at partnering with the contractor.
Yeah, they maintain the brand.
Yeah, they maintain the brand. They're not just combining a bunch of HVAC companies and then changing the brand to this big conglomerate.
Yeah,
and so
they have this means of penetrating a market, speed of information. Excuse me. They have a huge team of MBAs whose whole job is doing nothing but financial analysis and financial gymnastics. They're super good at it. one of the things that it has done is I think that PE this round did to the HVAC world what social media did to society. It made the world a lot smaller. It made it feel like the rate at which you could talk to somebody was instant. And to expound on that a little bit more is it now means that every local mom and pop is no longer just competing in Oklahoma City or Dallas or Kansas City or Little Rock. They are now competing on the national scale. Why? Because you have giants in your market who are owned on a national scale, who have speed of information from national metrics. And so to the privately held company out there, it's on you. Like, you have to adapt or the future is bleak. You have to get better or the future is bleak. You have to make moves or you will get swallowed by a company who is competing on a national scale. The giants in our market in OKC, they want to maintain and capture OKC, but they have $1 billion war chest in 4 different markets. OKC is but a sliver of their portfolio. And so it shrunk the world of HVAC down to almost the haves and have-nots of, do you have $1 billion war chest behind you or don't you? Do you have speed of information or don't you? And so you have to adopt and use tools at your disposal because they have more money than all of us.
Yep.
And you have to get crafty. You have to get good. It's
They've
whenever
got better buying power.
Yeah. So when Truman, after FDR passed away, Truman became president, and Truman's mom was the first call that he made. And his mom, the only thing that it's the hardest line I think a mom could say to her son in that moment. And she said, "Harry, be good, but be game. Be good, but be game." It's basically like, maintain your morals, but be on your yannies. Make sure you're taking care of it. Make sure you're on a razor's edge.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think there's some, because you can have fun with this. I think we have fun with this. It's like, okay, all right, this PE company, they're bigger than us, but what way can we outmaneuver? What way
do
can
they
we
have kindness?
Yeah, but do they have kindness?
Do they have kindness?
Yeah. But like, how can you outmaneuver that, or how can you circumvent this? And something that you're naturally good at, how can you highlight that maybe they're going to have an issue with? And so, we all enjoy like war stories and history and all this kind of stuff. Because I go back, I may have mentioned this before, but back in I think it was 1948, the 6-Day War, in when Israel was trying to was fighting all the nations around them. One of my favorite stories that I learned from At the Lion's Gate, which is a book about that, was they were looking for planes, and all the whole new thing was missile systems, missile targeting systems that could target planes and other military entities at like 500 miles away. I mean, just crazy far. But the nation of Israel is really small. I mean, it's like the size of New Jersey.
It's like
and so
30 miles across.
Yeah, And so anyway, the guys that were like looking for this stuff were going, "Hey, dude, 500 miles is too far. They're here." So they pretty much stripped the planes down and they said, no, we just want machine guns. Just give us machine guns. And so they outfitted all these planes with machine guns. Well, anyway, they did something, and I'm bringing up this story to highlight a point. Is the technology of the day, the trend of the day was to go with bigger, better missile systems, more fancy, more technologically advanced, all this kind of stuff. And they were like, no, we're gonna go backwards a little bit because we know our realm, our playing field. We know what the parameters of our engagement are, and so if you know that as a company and as a business, like, okay, this is the rules of engagement for us as a company. Here's where we operate. You can start making moves in small areas that will pay big dividends later. And so I highlight that story to illustrate that point.
It's the
companies can do the same thing.
The mantra that Bryce has been saying for the last probably year and a half is do less better. I mean, that's the perfect example. Is the Israelis, they needed their planes to do less better. Literally what they needed.
I mean, we could go into other things. Anyway, that's just a cool story that they did. But I think that's, as maybe a smaller company out there, or but really, when you're talking about PE, like, everyone's a small company, and in comparison to PE. So
It's fun. Also,
small is relative.
I think we enjoy the narrative. I think we enjoy the narrative
Raise
of
our pirate flags.
us versus them kind of mentality, or David versus Goliath.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a David and Goliath
Everyone
story.
wants to be David.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be David. So
Yeah.
it's like in this scenario we are David, and yeah. So it's fun to kind of position ourselves in the market. I enjoy it from the marketing perspective because it is hard. It is getting more difficult. Things, they're pulling off things that we haven't thought of. That they're typically bringing things to the table that we might have not thought of ourselves, or they have operations that are just more tight than ours. And so, what this is an opportunity for companies this size and smaller is to look at what they're doing, mirror it, and say like, okay, we can do that also, and maybe a little bit better. And I think that's on us. That's on us to constantly pay attention to what's going on to these companies that do have this giant war chest, that do have these resources to make these big decisions. That they have insights that we can borrow from. Is basically what I'm saying.
And I think to highlight that too. So like, in order to do that, it requires about two things. You have to be awake and aware, right? And then two, like a willingness to change. So that those two things coupled together can make a pretty potent formula in order to propel a business forward. That will change the lives of everyone involved.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, oh, okay, well, we're just going to get better as a business. Like this is going to this can change things.
And as leaders, you have to be constantly looking up and out. And if you're not, it'll be to the detriment of your team.
Yeah. And for the contractor that may feel like they're staring up a giant wall, like hone in on what you are good at and fine tune it. Choose the guns, instead of the missiles. Hone in on what learn from the best, because what PE is doing, it's not unethical. It's not. It's very professional. Their operations are top notch, and so you need to increase your R&D department,
Rob and duplicate,
and implement it in your business, and choose 1 to 2 things at a time,
and understand that,
and understand it to a T, and perfect those 1 to 2 things, and then you can move forward.
And it's a lot like construction.
Yep.
It will take longer, and it will cost more than what you want it to.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
But through pig-headed stubbornness, make it happen.
Yes. Make it happen.
Because you see these companies, it's not. You see the giants in your market. You see the PE firms in your market. And even before it was PE, everybody has giants in their market.
Yeah.
And I tell this story, almost self-deprecatingly, is because I had a bad view on this. Because it's easy to have a bad view on this. Because it's easy to want to be the David and Goliath and be like, oh, they suck, they're terrible, they're the villain, and we're the good guys. However, Google reviews have a really quick way of humbling you. You can't cheat on Google reviews. You can't pay for Google reviews. If you do, Google will catch on and they will shut you down. So they have to be legit reviews. So the challenge that I want to lay out to other contractors is change your perspective on the giants in your market. They're not this evil bad guy. They're not Doofenshmirtz. They're not this guy who's coming to take over and wanting to topple the HVAC space in your city. They have 7, 8, 10,000, 20,000 5-star Google reviews, and we're sitting here in our office as a $4 or $5 million company with 900 Google reviews saying like, oh man, they're terrible. Those guys, they're ripping people off. It's bad. We tell the story that we want to hear, and we believe it. And that's the perspective that we keep a lot of times is, as a smaller company, you're going to see broken technicians from that company come to you, and they're going to be like, oh man, that place was terrible. And you're going to be like, I know, right? It was awful.
It's a big echo chamber of confirmation bias.
Yeah, we're going to have a huge dopamine hit of just confirmation bias, and it's fun to tell that story.
Oh, yeah.
Zoom out, look up and out. 20,000 people have left them a 5-star Google review.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Yes.
They're not wrong. You're
Yes.
wrong. You're
Yes.
standing in front of a crowd of 20,000 people saying, you guys will have it all wrong. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
They've
The
been
giant-
really happy with their services.
the giant in their market provided them great service. They were happy enough with it to leave a 5-star Google. Also, I am terrible at leaving Google reviews because the friction.
Yeah.
So to have that many people leave a 5-star Google review, something has happened properly.
Yeah.
So change your perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like, when you might be wrong, but you might not be wrong, but you might have just an incomplete picture of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, no one's omniscient,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're getting all of this, this narrative where it's like, oh, well, this is a bad company. Well, it's like, well, okay, hold on. You know, look at the Google reviews, and then like, you know, take a step back for a second and say, okay, all right, I might not fully understand everything happening here. You know, so that's
Well, if they have a pissed off customer rate of like 10%, and that's probably high, but let's say all of us have a pissed off customer rate of 10%, and we're only seeing 100 customers a week. Well, we've pissed off 10 people. That's not a whole lot. If they're seeing 1,000 people a week, and you're their next biggest competitor, let's say you are the one sitting in the gap. If they see 1,000 people per week and they're pissing off 100 customers, there's a non-zero statistical probability that in that week you might see nothing but pissed off customers from your giant. And then you get to confirm your belief even further that this company sucks.
yeah, because you ran into everybody this week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this actually jumps into recruitment practices, and so we talk a lot about branding. You know, strategizing our brand versus other brands in our market against the giants. You know, how does this lend itself into recruitment practices? How do you sell yourself? How do you sell your brand to the young technician who's looking for a job straight out of vocational school? And I wanted to jump in. We had a couple headlines pulled up that we're actually seeing a huge shift in Gen Z. There was a couple articles that got released, and it says, you know, Gen Z is now being considered the tool belt generation, and that they just have a higher interest in the trades overall. And we're seeing that because there's, you know, people are having less faith in higher education. And obviously tuition rates have gotten ridiculous in the last 10 years because we've talked about this in probably the last podcast, but you know, 10 plus years ago, we were all in starting our college journeys, and that was pretty much sold to us through high school. It's like, hey, you should go to college. You should go to college. Yep. What I'm hearing now, my wife is a teacher, is that, and she's a teacher for a more rural district, so that can also play in to this, but she's saying that a lot of that rhetoric has shifted. A lot of it has been shifted towards, hey, go to trade school. So anyway, in terms of recruitment, I just wanted to get your guys' take on Gen Z, you know, taking up the trades, and what does it look like to recruit this generation, you know, and how do you sell yourself versus the other guys?
If you are a Gen Z person and you're listening to this podcast and you live in the Oklahoma City metro area, give us a call.
Shoot me an email, tucker@yarbroughsons.com.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's, you know, I remember I just perused that article, you know, before we started today, and you know, just the price of college just going up, you know, and the versus the relative low cost of trade school in comparison to what it costs for a 4-year degree,
And the return on the college.
yeah.
degree
And so
too.
it's like, you know, we've had this conversation before. It was like, well, what is the purpose of college, and what is it, job placement, or is it to have a better educated society? You know, we need to answer that question, you know, because we're kind of confused right now.
Yep.
So, but as far as like to answer your question, Bryce, like what does it look like to recruit and train and attract, you know, the younger generation? I think it's, like I said, this is my hot take. So, you know,
Hot takes only.
hot takes only, right? But I think it's, you've got two things. You've got, you know, the high price of a college degree, and then, you know, them not saying, well, I'm not guaranteed a job. You know, I think I'm going to have to take out loans. And so, but also, you know, I feel like with the I think millennials did this too, but even more so maybe with Gen Z, is not just being like a cog in a machine. They want to, you know, work for a place that knows them and that is really aware of what they want out of that company exchange.
They
right?
want to know that they're making a difference.
Yeah, making a difference and serving a purpose and all this kind of stuff, and to see that really clearly. And so as ownership team at Yarbrough and Sons, we get to kind of set that vision. And so I think it's kind of that combination of helping them see the road before them. Like, okay, hey, if you choose to come plant your flag here at Yarbrough and Sons, here's what your life could look like. Here's the money you could make. Here's the type of things that you can do and be involved in moving forward, and painting that picture. You know, so I feel like for Gen Z, it's going to really look like, you know, the companies that paint that picture, that help that come alongside them and say, okay, here's what your life could look like. You know, I think those companies are going to do better than just companies that are just saying, all right, hey, we'll submit your application. We'll talk about it.
And as far as like recruiting is concerned, is looking at job postings over the years, because that's been my area of domain since I joined the company, is running recruiting, making sure we have all the seats filled that we need filled. Is the trend probably 5-6 years ago was like these super fantastical job postings. It was like, are you ready for a brighter future, a bigger career, and more opportunities? And then the opposite of that was also true within the trades. It was like, are you ready for hard work, long days, and terrible attics? And and
But
you know,
does that qualify?
yeah. Well, and there's something you said there. But the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And so I think Gen Z, their parents were Gen X, and so Gen X parents and older millennials could have some Gen Zs, but their parents, they watched their parents go through the 2008 financial crisis in a big way. They watched their parents try to recover from that. They watched their parents who are the Gen X and older millennials are the most colleged section of the country be unemployed for the most time. So they watched their parents go through that. And so I think that that's had a big socioeconomic impact on what they see, because the trades don't have layoffs. Mm-hmm. We need people to fix air conditioners, to do plumbing, to do the thing. And so as far as recruiting is concerned, it's painting like what Will said, it's painting a clear and honest picture of, hey, here's what your life could look like. Here's the things we offer. Here's what we do. And like across the nation, trades-based companies, especially like family-owned ones, and I speak just from experience and talking to other family businesses. I don't know what the inside of PE companies looks like, but family-based, of reasonable size, not just the startup phase, but if they're an established family business, like they will offer some of the most beneficial benefits that you could get. And so I think, having 100% healthcare coverage, having 100% accidental and disability coverage, covering their employee, helping, subsidized family care, things like that often you're paying for out of pocket. Like Cass, my wife, she works at a hospital, and like she has to pay for her own health insurance there. And it doesn't make sense. And it's like, so that's a corporate environment. And so you have this dissidence that occurs where you think the bigger the company you work for, the more opportunity there is to have those things. But painting the clearer picture often will win you more candidates, and candidates who are vested, than painting a fantastical or painting the worst picture possible.
Yeah, and again, I got this from homepros.news, but in 2022, about 214,000 16 to 24-year-olds were enrolled in apprenticeship programs, which is more than double the amount from the decade prior. I know, the rhetoric we've been saying for the last couple of years is that the replacement ratio is down pretty significantly, but I guess, we're starting to see that trend kind of change over time. So,
and even with that, there's still a ton of opportunity because the replacement ratio of retired to new entrants is still like
5.
Yeah, it's 5 to 1. So
it's still not enough, but
for every 5 that retire, there's one there to take their place.
Yeah.
So there's still immense opportunity. So Gen Z, you are literally our lifeline here for the trades. So
yeah,
let's get after it. Let's build some cool stuff.
I have the line from Star Wars. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Well, and also
with space buns,
guys, some of our best recruitments have been the Gen Zers. As of late, here's the reason why we're grabbing guys up as straight out of trade school, or some of them haven't come from trade school. Some of them are straight out of high school. But I think our average age for our service department right now has to be like 24 years old. Yeah, 25 years old.
The average age for the company is like 27.
That's pretty young. We're a relatively young company in terms of our employees. But what I was going to say is that in terms of those recruitment, like we're finding great success growing guys in-house. Yeah. We're finding great success growing guys in-house. And we actually have a preference now for our guys to be kind of green, right?
Bench made.
Yeah. And how long does it take normally to grow a guy in-house to become, an operable service technician? I feel like it takes maybe like a year and a half.
Yeah, I mean, well, because like whenever we say service technician, are we talking about
like
service
trouble,
tech, maintenance tech,
maintenance versus trouble? Because I think we have a really cool, I think I love how we structure it, but we have kind of like a graduation kind of trajectory for our guys where they start out on maintenance and then they work their way up to becoming a trouble tech. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that takes about like a year and a half for our guys.
What were you gonna say?
No, I was actually gonna say, I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm just pulling from anecdotal information. Like I don't have any hard stats on like, it takes exactly 2 years and 4 months.
Well, I don't think we don't have it mapped out either.
Right. But I think around there.
To get someone operable as far as a trouble technician goes, you can have them ready to be an entry level trouble tech in like 6 to 8 months. But to be ready to run on our own, it'll probably be somewhere around that 1.5 year mark. With Oklahoma's license laws, which if anybody from the Oklahoma state government is listening to this, we need to abolish these as soon as possible. It is a hindrance to the trades, and if you would like to continue building buildings, we need more tradespeople. So this is a
Shots fired.
message.
Deadpan staring into the camera.
Message brought to you and approved by Tucker Yarbrough. No, but the trade laws are that you have to be an apprentice for 3 years. So you can't run a truck. If you came out of trade school, it cuts a year off. So you have to be an apprentice for 2. If you came out of high school or don't have any experience, you have to be an apprentice for 3. And so to be able to run on your own, the license is the barrier to entry. And so what we can have guys ready to run on a crew, like they can work with one journeyman can have 4 or 5 apprentices under them at one time. So on a commercial job, you can have a team running around, which is a lot of times what ends up happening. And so a 1.5 years is pretty solid. You can be ready to work on everything residential in that time frame.
Right.
Okay, yeah, and so in terms of branding, I also wanted to talk about a little bit what's been going on with our marketing strategy. So I apologize, Kolby and Will, because I know you guys love talking about marketing.
I do. I realize that we're jumping to branding, but I had something to say.
Oh, sure. Sorry, go ahead.
Training is consistent, and there is no end to it.
Yeah, you never arrive.
You never arrive.
Yeah.
And so whether it's a Gen Z, millennial, or boomer, or Gen X.
Yeah, forget you, Gen X.
Gen X. Sorry.
The forgotten generation.
I think that's what their nickname is.
That is what their nickname is. Yeah.
Anyways, my apologies. They don't have it never stops. So to say that there's a graduation, they're gonna be ready. Really, it's an ongoing conversation. It's an ongoing training, and so you need to be doing consistent training with your guys on Tuesday, not necessarily Tuesday.
No, do it on Tuesdays.
I'll show up.
If you do it on
Actually,
Tuesdays,
we're going to make this a national thing.
Tuesday trainings.
Tuesday training day. To teach your guys, because they can have the most technical skills in the world, but if they can't communicate that to the homeowner, then it doesn't make sense. So it's like well, they are technically ready, but can they communicate it?
And just know that if you train on Tuesday mornings, you will in spirit be joining the Yarbrough & Sons cult.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, to kind of lean into that a little bit, the trade, it never stops. Whether you graduate, whether you're a tenured service technician, or you're brand new, it doesn't. Training is always continuing.
Back to that Bill Belichick.
I know.
Don't get bored with consistency.
Consistency will win.
Yeah, and in terms of, I was just going to piggyback off of that, but it's tough. I think it's the technical side of what an HVAC technician does. To me, from my perspective, I would say that's the hardest thing you can do is learning the technical skills required to diagnose and fix the problems. You're shaking your head no, and I figured a lot of technicians, maybe it comes now. It's because that's not my knack, right? I don't have I'm not a hands-on guy. I can barely attach a water hose on my house. but a lot of the guys I work with,
This is an anecdotal experience.
It's a very anecdotal. Yes. But
when the hose turns and tries to unscrew itself because of the tension in the hose, it's just annoying.
Look, I just
you break the faucet, then you're calling a plumbing company.
I have difficulties. Okay. But I'm grateful to work with a lot of guys who a lot of this hands-on work comes very natural to them. But for me, the technical skill that's involved, I told them I took your Tuesday morning meeting this last week, and I told them, I said, just throwing out a metric here, but 98% of the world does not have the technical ability that you have, right? Maybe the 98 is probably a little high. I don't know, 95. Most of the world does not possess the technical skills that you possess. You've already done the hard part of understanding how to do the trade, how to do the technical part. The tough part, it seems like, is also just learning the soft skills, because it's so hard to find that hand in hand with a technician to have great soft skills and great technical skills. So you're looking for a unicorn at all times.
You got to be equal parts intelligent and crazy, because everything that we deal with is high pressure, hot, cold, or trying to cut you at all times.
Yep. And then communicate to the homeowner after you found all the problems.
I mean, sometimes they're hot, cold, and trying to cut you at all times.
It was one time, Will. It's one time.
But in terms of branding in general, we put a huge shift into our branding efforts this year. So, I wanted to talk about in the first quarter of this year something that Tucker and I changed a lot with our marketing strategy. We have conversations in November, looking at the year ahead and saying like, okay, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, and we test and scale everything we do. And we did the math and we looked at what was working, what wasn't working. Okay, so this year we made the plan to go heavy into branding, heavier than we ever have before. We're doing this by running ads on local TV stations, streaming services, as well as doing yard signs, and even we snagged a couple more billboards. Doubled up on our billboards. It doesn't feel like a lot. When you say doubled up, it's like we did double up on it, but it's also like it's still just a handful of billboards. So we
went from 3 to 6.
Yeah. so billboards are expensive, but those are the big shifts we've put into our marketing budget this year, and we have seen a lot of fruition from that we weren't quite expecting. I don't want to say we weren't expecting it, but it's like we did blow it out of the water.
We were sleeping on.
We were skeptical.
We were very skeptical. Okay, talk about being young. We have a young age here. The ownership team itself is young, right? So the employees
Hear
who work
that,
here, the employees who work here are pretty young.
We're bringing up the average age currently.
Yeah. So the point is, we slept on traditional media. We slept on traditional advertising in terms of TV ads. Biggest reason is because running TV ads is expensive. It's out of your control. You're trusting more or less a middleman to handle your media purchases to put it out there, and you're just having a lot of faith in that process because we didn't grow up. I didn't grow up. I've done media for my entire career, but I am 29. I'm turning 30 next month, so I haven't had a whole lot of experience in traditional media because I didn't grow up in that era. I don't have a career in that era, so there's a lot of trust that had to be played into that. But what's amazing is the budget we put into that has gotten us record high new customer generation for the first quarter of the year, the worst quarter of the year, January, February, and March.
And the reason how we know it came from that is basically just like deductive reasoning.
Yeah.
Because every other vertical that we have is tracked other than TV, billboard, yard sign.
Well, and we love digital too, because one is because we understand it. We have a more inherent understanding of it. And we, of course, we have this, I don't know if you want to call it like a chip on our shoulder. We're like, oh, we know what's going on. We know how to maneuver. We know how to outmaneuver. We're smart.
But as we'll get to, we don't. We don't know what's going on.
We don't. We find out all the time. Every month or two, we realize we've been doing something terribly wrong, and we shift accordingly.
It's the saying, the more we learn, the dumber we just feel.
That's exactly right. That's marketing. Yeah. But
to expand on kind of what happened was, we still had a huge presence in PPC, in local service ads, and Google had a new campaign that was...
It launched last year. It's called Performance Max. All right. And so I'm going to lay out the groundwork here. Performance Max is Google's more automated hand-holding campaign. It's very easy for any contractor to jump on Google Ads and launch a Performance Max campaign.
And Google will encourage you to use Performance Max.
They will, of course, because it's easier. They're making it frictionless. And this is really smart on Google's end because they want more people to spend money on their platform for more ad space, right? And they want to make it as easy and frictionless as possible. If you're jumping into Google AdWords for the first time, it could be a daunting experience.
It's overwhelming.
You're paying for keywords. You're not sure what people are typing in. Google does all the homework for you. It tries to tell you, hey, this season AC repair will be it will increase by 43% in search queries. It'll do some homework for you and kind of outline like, hey, you should add this keyword. So it'll suggest you to do things all the time. What's problematic about Google's suggestions is that it's always going to push you to spend more money. It's always going to push you to raise your budget. It's you see memes about it all the time on it's marketing memes, but
you see memes about it.
I see memes about it. I see marketing memes about it, but it's
everybody sees marketing memes.
Nerd.
But it's like conversions are at all time low. My cost is at an all time high, and everything is not working on this campaign. And Google's suggestion is, hey, spend more money. Spend more money. Put more money into it. It'll work. It's like, dude, you can only try this.
It's not that the ad sucks. It's just that you're poor.
But, at the end of the day, Google Ads will consistently encourage you to spend more money. And that can be problematic for a lot of contractors who are running their Google Ads in-house. And at that way, I would, I'd recommend that you employ somebody who knows kind of what they're looking at when it comes to Google Ads. But
He danced around it. He didn't say hire a vendor because it would have tasted like a cuss word. But
there is a time and place. I think it is significant. I think it can be imperative for companies to hire a vendor to do these things for them, because there is specialized knowledge that you as a HVAC contractor have never had the time, unless you're Cody Damp from Innovative Air Pros, because that guy
who's also a nerd.
Yeah,
Plug in Cody again.
yeah, Cody has done his homework, man. We talked to him back in December, and I was so impressed by just how much he's running his business in the day to day. That's abnormal, Cody. That's abnormal. That's not normal. You have done more homework in Google Ads than I think you rightfully
90%.
than you have the time for. But that's
But he's a nerd.
Yeah, he's.
And so one of the things that Performance Max does, though, by not allowing you to choose your keywords, it is going to put you in the areas of highest conversion, is the way that they pitch this. And so Bryce and I were looking at it, and it's easy. Again, this is like the scary part of this. This is why I'm going to use the word again. You got to be on your Yannis. You got to make sure you're. Yeah, it's an internet thing. You're too old.
There you go. Yeah, I was going to say. I was like, I have no idea what that is.
It's not in Bluey Land.
I don't know if the majority of people listening to this would know the definition.
That's all right. It's Laurels and Yannis.
Laurels and Yannis.
You gotta don't rest on your
Hey,
laurels.
we all learned something today.
Adds more to it.
We all learned something today.
Don't rest on your laurels. That's a saying. That's a real thing. It's like don't be lax.
Hey,
I know what that one is.
Guys, I just want to point out that the cutoff between millennial and Gen Z is the three of us, and Tucker is the Gen Zer, and it shows all the time.
Oh, 1996 is the cut. And I'm there.
Right
So
there.
I'm a bubble kid.
Resident Gen Zer.
I'm like square millennial.
Yeah.
Let's say, yeah.
So you got to be on your game, because especially like if you're dealing with a vendor or if you're doing it yourself, it's easy to get enamored with the numbers a little bit, because it'll be like, oh my gosh, look at this. And if you're only measuring it from ROAS, your return on ad spend, it will look incredible, because it's going to generate a whole lot of clicks, a whole lot of calls, a whole lot of booked jobs, and a lot of money. But whenever you zoom out a little bit and see where are these people coming from, and you look, Performance Max does do one thing. It tells you where most people are interacting with your ad at. And for us, the top 3, was it?
Are you talking about keywords, or are you talking about placement?
No, keywords.
Keywords. So
The top 3 was Yarbrough and Sons.
Yarbrough and Sons, Yarbroughs, some variation of Yarbrough and Yarbrough and Sons.
It was all branded stuff. Yeah. And so whenever it was like 80-something% of all the customers we generated through Performance Max were through
for us anyways.
Branded search terms. And it was the most expensive leads we had. But on paper, if we didn't do the homework and just looked at leads ran versus revenue generated, you're going to keep spending a whole bunch of money on this.
Yeah.
But 80% of the search terms came from our name. People were looking for us by name.
And this is highlighting the issue with Performance Max. They've automated it to make it really easy
For you to spend money and
But the problem with that automation and that hand holding is that it disallows you to control the keywords. On every other kind of Google campaign, for the most part, you can control the keywords. You're paying for those keywords. So we have what are called branded PPC campaigns. That if anyone types in Yarbrough and Sons, some variation, our PPC ad will pop up. We want to secure that ad space.
And it's cheap.
We're securing that real estate. And if you look at the return on ad spend on that, of course, you're spending maybe $150, $300 a month to secure thousands of dollars,
And
thousands of dollars.
And for those who may not understand why do we pay out for our own
So this was an interesting conversation Tucker and I had like a year ago, and it was like, hey, do we pay for our own name? Is it does it make sense to do that? Well, here's why: is because if you're not paying for your name, somebody else in your market
Definitely is.
And we have some giants in our market who do compete on our keyword. Those are competitor ads. We personally, we don't run any competitor ads because they're very expensive, and you're betting on the fact that someone's going to accidentally click on your ad instead of...
Yeah, you're banking on the ignorance of the consumer.
Yeah, and Ricky, I love one of our CSRs. He loves getting these. If someone calls a different company and they end up with us, he does his best to convert them, and to him that's just a double win. He
stole it.
Yeah. He gets those conversions that he loves. They don't happen often, but when they do, he gets excited and he tells me about it. Anyway, here's the problem. I'm trying to outline it, but Performance Max does not allow you to change keywords. So what it's going to do is it pulls all the information from your website and it says, okay, they do heating, air, and plumbing. They are Yarbrough and Sons, and they're going to take all those keywords. Well, it turns out the majority of our conversions happen through the phrase Yarbrough and Sons. So if you're typing in Yarbrough and Sons and you see Performance Max campaign, you're going to click on it. So that's our highest converting keyword. Performance Max will then keep pushing,
gonna
and
double
keep
down
pushing,
on it.
keep pushing and keep pushing, and so
because it's using AI to confirm its performance.
It's a,
so,
it's a feedback loop.
So here's the issue. Here's the issue. We already run PPC campaigns for Yarbrough and Sons.
we had a few generic terms.
And we have a Google business profile. If you type in Yarbrough and Sons, you're going to see our Google business profile. I think it outlines a couple of things. I think that it comes down to user behavior. I think if people are smart enough to click on the Google business profile, I think we would all click on the Google business profile. It's basically the modern yellow page.
And to add to that, though, is a thing that Performance Max did that like kind of feels icky and weird to me is they just duplicated your Google business profile and put it at a different spot on the page. So they just put it up at the top. They changed it into a more horizontal landscape. It looks just like your Google business profile. So if like you're somebody who is used to clicking on Google business profile stuff and you see something that looks 90% similar just in a different orientation, your thought's going to be, oh, they just changed it. All right, click.
So here's what our thought was, just to put a pin in this because I know we're dragging this out. We canceled our Performance Max campaign because on paper it showed that we were performing amazing. We were putting a lot of money in and getting a lot of money out. But our theory was that, well, shoot, I think these are just stealing conversions we would have gotten anyway. I think these people, if they didn't see this Performance Max campaign, they would have just clicked on our Google business profile, which is free. Or at the very least, they would click on our PPC campaign, which is
negligible.
Is not a whole lot of cost. And so our theory has proven true through April. It's been a month since we've kicked Performance Max out, and we're saving thousands of dollars.
Customer gen is down, by about 10%. Customer gen's down about 10%.
It's been a really mild April, and
Revenue is up
Yeah.
about 40%. So we'll take that all day long.
Yeah.
And we're saving.
Do you want to know how much we were
$20,000-$30,000?
How much we were spending on Performance Max
Yeah.
alone was north of $12K a month.
Yeah.
$12,000 to secure leads. Now the return on investment there was there. If you're spending $12,000, we were easily, capitalizing off that, making
5, 6, 7x.
7x at the least. And it's just because these were, like we said earlier, qualified leads. These are
At the end of the day, they were branded leads.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which converted a 3x higher rate for us anyway.
Yeah, I feel like that's getting into legacy marketing has opened up a couple. Can of worms would kind of be like basically we're in things that we can't track, like the legacy marketing route. Like people are searching our name more consistently.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, I feel like had we not have the brand recognition that we have been pushing, then we probably this probably wouldn't have been an issue. But because it's kind of like we're paying for the same, for two sides of a teeter-totter.
Well,
And so
I think two things happened in this first quarter that changed a lot of our marketing strategy. We dialed down our digital ad spend, the thing that we felt the most confident about, the thing that gives us the most control because there is no middleman. It's just us controlling it. So if we make mistakes, that's on us. Like it's, if you're an idiot, then you're going to mess up. But we dialed down our digital ad spend. We increased our branding ad spend. Branding, we cannot attribute, we cannot track nearly as well. There's a paper trail on digital. I know that Will Yarbrough clicks on our ad and that he called from this point of entry and that he booked a job and that it turned into a sale. I see the entire paper trail and there's a lot of comfortability in that. And it feels good to be able to attribute all that from the marketing chair. It's like, this is great. I have the full journey of that customer. Now for branding, I get someone who just calls our office. I get someone who called our Google business profile and I have no idea how they ever heard of us. They're a brand new customer. I have to chalk that up to branding. I have to say that, you know what? Their neighbor we just serviced 3 weeks ago. We put a yard sign out there. Okay. That's how we attribute it. Or we look at the doubling down on our billboards. We look at how much we're putting into our TV ad spots or how many people have come up to us and anecdotally told us, hey, I saw you guys on TV. I saw you, so it's way more loose and it's way less comfortable in general to go into branding. It's a much higher upfront cost, but the way it's been paying off for us in this first quarter has been wild.
And we'd gladly be wrong. Like, if comes out and, something changes on Performance Max, and like, we're not killing it for good, but the way it sits right now, it doesn't make any sense. And so to other contractors out there, is make sure you're asking the right questions of where are people finding me? What volume are they finding me at using those search terms? What are they converting at? Because and again, this is going to sound really negative, but a vendor is constantly trying to justify their existence, justify their relationship with you. And so if given the opportunity of, not being on your game, it's easy to confirm that, like, hey, we're generating all this money for you in your Google Performance Max campaigns, or we're generating all this return on ad spend. And then it becomes an easier justification game if you're not reading through the minutia of conversion metrics, because then you're just going to get screwed and stuck paying a larger and larger bill because you're going to put more and more money at it. Why? Because it seems like it's working. It seems like but at the end of the day, like for us on our Google business profile, I said new customer gen is down about 10%, but since we killed Performance Max and increased elsewhere, our total calls from our business profile have increased by about 15%. Mm-hmm. So
now there's also the season has changed as well, and we have to keep that in perspective. So something else I wanted to outline is our whole strategy going into this year was that from the beginning, we were going to dial back digital ad spend as the year progressed towards the summer, because we treat it like a bell curve of when the call volume is at its highest, we're dialing back our digital ad spend. We don't really want to pay for leads that we don't have the capacity to service, right? So either way you look at it, there's a confirmation bias a little bit going on, because it's like, okay, our organic calls are coming in regardless. And so we're testing and scaling this, but here's where we sleep a little better at night, knowing that we have not spent $12,000 this month in Performance Max. And that savings is going to make a big difference in our overhead for the year. We get to reallocate those funds into different areas, and we're having fun right now trying to figure out, okay, we're re-strategizing on the fly right now. Like, where do we put this money? We want to continue into our branding efforts, and we want to continue doing community projects and things like that. So it's been an interesting year. So that's my quick little recap on what's been going on in the world of Google, and we've been learning a lot. So yeah, I think my last take on that is, if you are a contractor and you're working with a vendor, and this is a question I would ask them, is understanding what kind of campaigns are we running. Yep. Are we running branded PPC campaigns? Are we
generic search terms? Are
we paying for generic search terms like AC repair? Are we paying for Performance Max? And it's tough to understand. I think I think just asking your vendors those questions can at least give you a little bit better idea of what exactly you're paying for, what kind of customers you're paying for, and the quality of those leads that you're paying for. Because I think it'd be way too easy. It'd be way too easy for a vendor to, on paper, show that they're doing amazing stuff for you, and in truth, they're not. So,
and also, if you as the contractor are quick to just be, it's like, well, the customers take care of itself. It's like, I just focus on fixing the thing or selling the thing. Customers are the lifeblood. New customers are the lifeblood of your business. You owe it to your team to do the homework, or to have someone on your team who's going to do the homework and be your advocate within the marketing space, because there's a lot to it. And without proper homework, it's easy for it to become just a casino.
Yeah.
That we're throwing money into and hoping to get a return.
So, okay, something else I wanted to point out is I got this from John Torrey's, the data-driventrades.substack.com. Now, John Torrey is a really cool guy. He's been putting out these newsletters I've been reading for like the last year and a half or so. And if there's two newsletters I can recommend you check out right now, it's homepros.news and the Data-Driven Trades by John Torrey, because you get so much information about what's going on in the industry and what's going on for this, at least with PPC. So we've seen like nearly a 40% decrease in paying customers in the first quarter through Google PPC, and we felt that. We saw that in our metrics. And so it's great. It's great to, if you feel like you're sucking, like something's just not working, it's so nice to have a report that verifies like, hey, don't worry, everybody sucks.
Yeah.
That feels pretty good.
But Google's like, but spend more money.
Yeah. But something else I wanted to point out in terms of tech is like 33% of the conversions that did happen were through form leads, chats, and online scheduling. And that's just a huge departure. We're seeing that increase a little bit more over time. I think on on average, we're seeing maybe 10%, maybe 5 to 10% of our leads come from those means. But, you know, as the generations, the younger generations become homeowners, you're going to start seeing a larger portion of your leads jump on chats and lead forums and utilize things like contractor commerce or going to Linux.com. So that e-commerce side of this is it's changing in real time. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. So what do you guys think about AI?
It's there.
Yeah.
It's very much we never stop to ask if we should, only if we could.
Yeah.
And that is where AI is at, and it's not going anywhere.
So yesterday, Will was asking. He was talking about AI in the trades and maybe what that would look like. And that prompted. I remembered I had a conversation with someone at Service World, who they were utilizing a new part of ServiceTitan that was an AI dispatcher. So there is a tool available through ServiceTitan. We're not currently using it.
No.
But I asked them about like, okay, well, how did your dispatchers feel about that? They're like, oh, they hated it. Because basically the AI is taking the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Dispatchers are still there. They're still in the office. They're still working, but they're working in tandem with this AI who is determining right tech, right call, and things like that. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be a really useful tool, and that's the thing. That's the thing, though, too, is about AI. It's like it's not a question of like, do I like it? Do I not? It's like because it's coming. It's going to be a part of the industry, whether we like it or not. So how are we going to work alongside it? You know, so that I feel like that's
we
more the
leverage it?
question. How do we use it and leverage it in order to make it work for us? I think that's the big question. You know, and so all these dispatching softwares they're going to start using AI and whether it's ServiceTitan, Sarah, and all this other stuff, like because that's coming. And so I feel like us as contractors, finding it goes back to that other question of like how do we where we're talking about Israel, kind of the missile sort of analogy. How are we going to kind of bootstrap this or pirate this and not literally pirate it, but how are we going to use this to our advantage? I think those are conversations that generally people probably need to have and just be aware of, so that way kind of what the general narrative is within the industry and everything like that. So I think it's really important. So that's why I suggested it the other day. Was like I think this would be a really interesting topic to talk about for a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's an equalizer. I think the technology that we have today is. We were talking earlier about private equity having a certain advantage over us with their operations or their resources or their capital investments. I think that technology is the one safe haven for being an equalizer in the space, because it's like, hey, if you have an AI that determines how your operations are done, or at least in which technician goes to which call, I think that gives us an edge. There's less guesswork, and so I just thought that was an interesting take. Is that in a lot of ways this does put you on the edge of better performance, competing with these guys in the market, these giants in the market. So
I think it could, because I think the question would be like, okay, well, is this going to be taking do you guys feel like this AI could maybe take over dispatchers, maybe their job within the trades?
I don't know about take over, but I think it's we talk a lot of times about force multipliers.
Right.
It's a force multiplier.
Yeah,
it will
I
reduce the number of hands required for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's like, so to say it's going to replace, I think it's a reductive mindset. And companies who are going to use it to reduce the number of people on staff, I don't know that those companies are set up to succeed anyway.
Or worth working for.
Yeah, you can leverage the tool to help you move faster and help you grow faster, rather than reducing what you currently have.
Because I immediately think about like because your dispatcher only has so much time in the day.
Yeah.
And if you've got an AI that is perfectly capable of taking phone calls and kind of running the dispatching ship, like they're able to focus on a lot of the other tasks. Like I think you would diversify their skill set,
schedule, things like that.
And you could have like while the AI dispatcher is receiving calls, then your internal staff becomes your outbounding team.
Yeah.
And so and just the progress, the production that we had in February is like, if you had, during the summertime, our dispatchers don't have time to make outbounding calls.
No.
They just don't. But if you had the AI dispatcher, that would allow for them to have more time to do the more customer service based, maintaining relationships with our existing customer base, and being able to take on those phone calls. And so,
and to kind of, I don't want to say push back, but add to what Bryce said, but from a little counterist, it can be an equalizer. Keyword can be. If your operations suck, and the tool's not going to fix it. It's the same thing that, like, and not that contractors are the most guilty of this, but it's the space that I know. Contractors are so guilty of firing a vendor, especially like a marketing vendor, because it's like, oh, you're not performing for me, you're not converting, But shout out to our buddies over at Rhino and at Lemon Seed, they are very adamant, and they get very ingrained in your business to a place where they're looking at call booking rates, conversion rates, things like that. Because if you're not tracking the whole process through, it's easy to blame someone other than yourself. That's what we want to do. That's human nature. Is like, oh, well, it's not because I suck. It's because you suck. Yeah. And we fire them and move on. So there's no golden bullet. There's nothing that's going to fix the thing. Like in AI, I think AI is actually just going to accelerate that. It's going to accelerate the feedback loop between operations being sound and operations sucking. It's going to make that echo chamber a lot smaller because it's a tool like any other. And you are only ever going to get out of it what you put into it. Yeah. Right. And so to sit here and look speculatively at AI as this fix-all that's going to replace dispatchers or CSRs or make technicians where they don't have to think as critically. Everything, we've said it a couple times on the podcast now through different episodes, everything at every level within the business becomes an operations problem. And if your operations aren't sound enough to handle the tool, then you don't need the tool. If you can't run a successful dispatching day and identify what leads are going to convert at the highest rate, what leads are going to have the greatest potential for lead flip by yourself, then an AI is going to be hell on earth for you because it is going to take over an already crappy system and make it even more crappy. Yeah. So it's only ever going to be as good as what you put into it as a company.
Right.
Now,
it's only as good as its driver.
It is very worth putting money and investing time and resources into learning how to use the tool, that being said. But it's the same thing as marketing. Yeah. Is you have to be your own advocate with it.
Yep. So, if Tucker has one statement to kind of summarize, know your numbers.
Yes.
Know your operations. Because I feel like that's something that we kind of learned because we really honed in and kind of figured out marketing and how all that works. But then we realized that our operations kind of was actually became our bottleneck. And so
I don't want to paint this picture like we got it all figured out either.
No, we don't. We don't.
We
all I see is the big pile of suck.
Yeah, on a very frequent basis in terms of marketing too. Because I'm over here, it sounds like I'm kind of talking down on vendors. It's like I'm not meaning to talk down on vendors. It's if you are a contractor, you probably need a vendor to take care of your marketing. You need someone, but what the separator, the difference that it can make is the accountability that comes with that. And a lot of times I'm not sure that contractors know the questions to ask in the first place or know what kind of homework to do in order to keep their vendors accountable. And just like Tucker said, with using AI, a tool is only, a hammer is only going to be as useful as your skill to wield and use the hammer. And so it's on us to understand how to leverage and utilize these tools, if it's a vendor or if it's an AI software. But we don't have things figured out. We break things all the time. We rewrite the playbook every other week. Yeah. We suck.
Yeah. All we see is the big pile of suck.
Yeah.
So I think in closing, you have to be your own advocate. You have to do your own homework. You have to make sure that you take ownership of the problem because it's easy to blame the big bad giant in your market. It's easy to blame the vendor for not converting for you, even though your call booking rate is setting at 40%. It's easy to look at AI and be like, oh, it's going to be the golden bullet that saves us all. I'm much more on the side of Skynet, but it's going to be here regardless. The problems in your business are still going to be here. The issues are still going to be here regardless of the vendor, regardless of the equipment shortcomings, regardless of manufacturers partnering with retail chains, and regardless of what Google's doing and how AI is going to impact the industry. the difference between the companies who make the curve and those who don't is the willingness to accept ownership of the entire process, start to failure, win or loss.
And I just wanted to end on a high note. I wanted to say that in terms of how our branding has been working this year, in terms of looking ahead, I think this is going to be a great year for us in terms of residential. Just because if we're performing at this level in our first quarter, I'm very excited to see what our second, third quarter bring us. Fourth quarter will be interesting too. But I think it'll be fun to do another episode on Q2, Q3, Q4 like this and kind of give a recap. So
that'd be a lot of fun.
do you guys have any projections for the year? Last little takes?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think, if things are looking like this right now, then I'm thinking the rest of the year is looking pretty good.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm excited that it's warming up, and call volume is going up. Opportunities for Will and I to get into homes and have conversations with homeowners on system replacements and whatnot, and continue the trajectory. Because at the end of the day, like, yes, our commercial is sucking right now, but we've got
work on the way.
We've got work on the way, and so we do have we do have work that we're able to do. It's just that as far as timing on the commercial side, we just haven't been able to do it yet.
I think you will have the year that you deserve. and I mean that to what degree are you putting in the work? To what degree are you doing the homework?
I hope everybody has the year they deserve.
I prayed so real quick. That's funny. I teach fourth and fifth grade Wednesday night at church, and anyway, they were like just talking about state testing and stuff, and they're like, pray for us during state testing. I was like, yeah, sure. And so as I'm praying, I'm like, Lord, help them to remember the things that they studied.
Yeah.
So that implies that you're studying.
You will get the grade you
and
deserve.
you'll get the grade that you studied, to the degree in which you studied. So anyway, that's
So I think you will have the year that you deserve. So put in the work.
Yeah.
This year, amongst the last 5 years, it's been easy to be fat and happy over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Sales, you could swing a stick, and we're selling at higher and higher rates. The last year and a half, 2 years, has kind of fallen off. So you will have the year you deserve. Yeah. So do the homework, be your own advocate, and take ownership of the process through and through. Guys, let's get out of here. We'll catch you next time. Like and subscribe. Later.
See ya.
Bye.